All right, and we are back, and I have with me in the booth the one, the only Nick Gill.
Hi, Internet.
Can everyone hear Nick Gill though? I wanted to make sure before we get started that everyone's able to hear Nick Gill. Can chat
One, two. Testing, one,
confirm
two.
for us?
Am I hearing you? Hearing me?
No, we've got a lot of no's from chat. Let's
Alright,
figure
let's
out
see.
why Nick Gill's not working.
Nick Gill's mic not working.
Give us just a second, guys. We're trying
Lights
to
are
figure
on.
out Nick Gill's mic here. Not good enough to top 8. This is true. Nick Gill did not make it. But we did ask him to do the commentary in the top 8, so maybe he just conceded for free, you know? Maybe he wanted to top 8. Oh, and it looks like Nick Gill's mic is working.
Hey, Internet. What's going on?
So, top 8's about to start.
Top 8
It's
is
exciting.
pretty stacked.
Yeah.
A lot of very good local players. A lot of big names.
And we're going to be starting off, we believe, with, it's going to be Daniel Espinoza on Turbo Depths, who we saw earlier. Though that was not a very exciting matchup because it was against, well, who was he against?
It was against some medium storm player, not anyone you probably heard of. A guy by the name of Nick. Nick Gill, I think his last name was.
Okay. Yeah, and I believe he won to the surprise of almost no one.
He did, but not really a display of skill. That matchup is pretty abysmal for the Turbo Depths player. They have some sorcery interaction, and their clock is just about a full turn slower on average than the Storm player's turn average turn kill. So it's not great for SB, but you know, he persevered and he is still in top 8. So yeah, exactly. He's playing and I'm commentating. So.
And he will be playing against oh, wrong. There we go. He'll be playing against Mike Griffin on Miracles. His deck he's been playing for I don't even know how long, 5 years, something.
Oh my gosh, he's been playing it for forever. And Mike Griffin, you know, near and dear to all of our hearts, the organizer of this event. He's got a great team around him. The commentators. He's got, you know, Daniel Espinoza, also part of the team. He's providing the equipment for the streaming.
Yep.
So, you know, really great to see him doing well because he's really put a lot of work into it and just really all around a great guy. And yeah, he knows miracles up, down, left, right.
And he's got some spicy ones in here.
Oh, he always does. He always
We've got
does.
some fun things in this deck. So there's you know the one of Entreat the Angels. There's 2 Terminus. But then we've got like a mainboard Keranos God of the Storms. Mainboard Gideon Ally of Zendikar.
Oh man.
1 mainboard Blood Moon as well. A Council's Judgment too in the main.
A main board Blood Moon is going to be pretty gross if that shows up.
Yeah.
I think SB might have some choice words about main board Blood Moon out of Miracles.
I think we might even hear them from across the room if it actually resolves. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, this deck is. Well, I was talking to Griffin a little bit before the match, and he said that you know if he doesn't die right off the bat, he feels really good about this match.
Oh, I completely agree.
He's quite concerned about just dying.
If the blue deck has the time to set up, it really does have so many tools available to it, and on display here, as you were saying, a bunch of spicy one-ofs that you really get to play in these blue mid-range decks because of cards like Ponder and Preordain, allowing you to play some cards that are good in some matchups, such as, you know, Keranos, God of Storms, as you were talking about, and Blood Moon, that might not be good in others. You can just shuffle them away, or, you know, choose not to draw them with Ponder.
Yeah.
And then when they are good, you have a lot of ways to look through your deck for them. So the ones that we're going to be trying to dig for if we're on the Mike Griffin side, we're going to be looking for Swords to Plowshares. We're going to be looking for Council's Judgment, possibly. We're going to be looking for Blood Moon, definitely. We're going to be looking for Terminus, absolutely.
Yeah,
Terminus is great because
brutal.
it's going to get around a lot of the protection spells that SB has, Daniel Espinoza has out of his main deck.
Yeah, you
So
can't protect the Sylvan. What's his name?
Sylvan
Sylvan. Yeah,
Safekeeper
doesn't do anything against the
and
Terminus.
the Sajiri Step both
Mm-hmm.
are going to be very powerful against most of the interaction, especially the Swords to Plowshares that Mike's going to be bringing. But yeah, Terminus, especially at instant speed off of a Brainstorm, and then obviously everyone's knows what Blood Moon does. So
Oh yeah.
that's going to be a not game of Magic if that gets cast.
Oh dear. We probably don't want that on stream actually.
Yeah, for those of you not in the Arizona meme market, a prolific Magic player has made his own somewhat
Seductive.
risque, I
Yeah,
would say,
it's seductive is the
playmat.
word I like.
It really does show quite a bit of skin.
It does,
Uh,
and he's always looking at you, no matter how the mat is turned, upside
it's
down.
uncanny.
Yeah, it's. I played against it a few days ago, and I had a hard time concentrating on my match. Not gonna lie. But good. Okay, I'm glad we have Arizona Vintage League coming up on the side of Griffin. All right, so it looks like we're about to get started.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah,
It's a
a
nice map.
nice.
We've got lots of fast mana on both sides of the mat. So, and something else we did find out, the next event that we'll be hosting is going to be on April 15th, held at Play or Draw. It'll probably be starting around the same time, 11 or noon. And so, yeah. And we're trying to find out right now when the next satellite event will be, just to see. Yes, Bronus Joms knows what's going on with Eric Wong, but we will not be showing that on camera. Protect ourselves there.
All right, guys. I also just got confirmation that if you've been enjoying what you've been seeing here today, uh, our next streamed Legacy City Championships event is going to be April 15th
Yep.
at Play or Draw.
And it will be Legacy, correct?
Legacy streamed and full of Brainstorm, Wasteland, Deathrite Shaman action. So.
Hopefully some Thalias in that one. I will try and
Oh,
play in
absolutely. There will definitely be some Thalias, some Blood Moons,
that one.
all the fan
Force
favorites.
of Wills.
Force of Wills, Batter Skulls.
It's going to be a good time.
So we're
Alright.
shuffling up,
And
and
do we know who's on the play here?
we
Who?
do, because I have the standings here. I'm pretty certain that Mr. Griffin, yes, Mike Griffin will be on the play. This is going to be the 4-5 match, so Mike Griffin is going to be 4th. Daniel Espinoza is going to be 5th, so he will be on the play, most likely.
And it looks like we're drawing up our
And
7.
we are starting.
So being on the player draw usually matters a ton in Legacy. I feel like in this matchup it matters a little bit less. It's still important, of course, but not as backbreaking.
I think that it does matter in so much as there really is a clock on Espinoza's cards. They rot. They get much worse very fast. He really does want to be aggressive. He doesn't want to be. He wants to be a combo deck in this matchup. The strong aspect of Depths is that it is a combo deck that has a lot of resilience.
Especially against a deck like this,
Yeah.
where he has 4 chances at his combo, right?
Exactly.
It's
But
a lot of time.
I think a lot of his resiliency is going to be tested, especially against the cards that we spoke about earlier, because Terminus is a really hard card to play around, and also a lot of counter spells that are going to make his some of his more situational cards, like crop rotation, might not be as good here.
Yeah,
But
that card. Sacrificing is a part of the cost.
yes,
So if that
precisely.
gets countered, you are just down a land on top of the card itself. But the nice thing is, if he just has depths and a Thespian stage, you can't counter that. You just have to have the answer flat out.
Right.
Now, Griffin has a lot, but
And I think
sometimes
that's
you might just
probably the best situation for Espinoza is no interactions, fast Merit Lage, and kind of just hope that Mike Griffin doesn't have anything, because in in game one especially, there's not a whole lot he can do about like Terminus off the top,
Yeah.
especially. He's got a lot of discard spells, so he can attack cards in his hand, but he can't do anything about cards that Mike Griffin's going to put on top with cards like Brainstorm, Ponder, Predict. Uh, yes. Um, that being said, a lot of the cards out of Mike's deck is going to be uh, pretty useless against Espinoza because I mean he's got two copies of Supreme Verdict, which aren't going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, Espinoza actually built his list specifically to make sure that all of his, he always went up instant speed.
Hmm.
Um, so, and we actually did just see a 7 scry get countered by Mike Griffin, so he's
Yeah,
aggressively countering the,
yeah. Like I was saying,
the trigger effects.
the counter spells are going to be pretty good here, but he is going to want to be firing off the counter spells pretty much as soon as he gets the chance
Yeah,
because um,
they lose
the
value.
longer the game goes, the better it is for the Miracles deck, and I think that's true of most matchups, but especially true in this matchup. He really does need time to set up these kind of like lock cards like a Terminus.
And just look at this hand by Griffin. We've got 2 Swords to Plowshares, a Terminus, a Snapcaster, and a Force of Will. I mean, this Terminus currently is stranded, but a Brainstorm off the top is going to just really make
And
Daniel
honestly, I
Espinoza's
think that's
life
probably
rough.
why I would, as Espinoza, would be interested in taking it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the Swords to Plowshares doesn't do a whole lot because he's got the Snapcaster Mage
Yeah,
available
so he
to
has 3
him.
copies right
I
now.
could see perhaps taking the Snapcaster to strand the Force of Will if he thinks that he's got a quick kill that can get through the swords.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that Espinoza is going to be playing a long game over a short game, but I could be wrong. Taking one of the swords means that he thinks that
He can get under it.
he can push through perhaps.
And he does Bajuka Bog him to get rid of that Swords. Now there's another one, so the Snapcaster's still going to be live with that.
Yes, but without another land, he is only capable of casting one.
Yep.
And
Could
he's only
matter.
got the one white source as well.
And
So
if we look, Daniel Espinoza does have 2 crop rotations in hand, so that Suggest step is very live. So that might be a lot of his decision making in this current time. He has the Vapor Hex Mage as well, so he only needs the Dark Depths, and he has the full combo plus protection.
yes, so this draw step for Mike Griffin is going to be very important. If he can hit a white source here, then it's going to get a little bit hairy. But if he doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
Espinoza is going to be in a bit of a winning position.
And you just see the crop rotation get Force of Will, and I think that might have also been a reason that Espinoza took the swords, right? Because he knew the Force had to be used with the Snapcaster, leaving only 1 Swords to Plowshares left in
That's
his
true.
hand,
That is true.
and nothing else. So Espinoza looks like he's actually thinking more ahead than we are.
He's certainly played the deck quite a bit.
Yes.
If any of you follow him, he streams pretty regularly, so he's really devoted to the deck. And just as a general rule in Legacy, I think that that's a strong place to be. Just really understand the deck that you're playing, understand all the matchups that you might run into, because Legacy is such a diverse format that if you know all the ins and outs of your deck, it's likely that your opponent won't. And so being able to leverage that is really powerful. I actually had that come up in my last matchup where I got 2 free draw steps because my opponent, you know, didn't know my deck very well, and so that was really kind of him.
Yeah, that helps a lot.
So he did draw the second white source, but at this point,
Now it
with
doesn't
no
matter. Yeah.
Snapcaster, he is working on just a Swords
and
of
Terminus.
Plowshares and the stranded Terminus. So
Now he's only 2 mana away from hardcasting that bad boy, but
I don't think that's
up.
going to come up just because in this matchup, I would not imagine that our friend Daniel's going to give him any chances to use sorcery speed removal because, yeah, sorcery speed, Terminus, while not the most exciting, is definitely a possibility. But he also has a Council's Judgment.
Here's a Jace, though, to Brainstorm, put the Terminus wherever he wants it. Oh, he's actually just going to bounce the Vampire X-Mage? And it looks like
that is interesting. We might see a kill here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
So I would be willing to bet we are just gonna see a 2020,
Yep.
and with Griffin tapped out, that's gonna be
It's gonna be it.
game almost certainly.
Wow, that's kind of
And
a steal.
that's a
I feel
good,
like.
gosh, that is a fantastically played game by Mr. Espinoza. He
Mhm.
really knew what was going on in the matchup, and yeah, just navigated it very very well.
And that. Are you attacking Jace? No. In fact, he is
Yes,
attacking
that's
my
gonna
Griffin's
be
face,
a whole game.
and that'll be that.
Alrighty, so
Let's look at these sideboards. What do people
let's take
have?
a look at what we've got in the sideboard. So for Mike Griffin, we have 2 surgical extractions, an engineered explosives, a rest in peace, a pulse of the fields, a dominate, a Vendilion click, a flusterstorm, an is it staticaster, a wear tear, a red elemental blast, a pyroblast, a Kozilek's return, a Bane Slayer Angel, and an Elspeth Sun's champion. What
Holy.
a legacy sideboard,
That is.
ladies and gentlemen.
There is one two of, and so
Yeah,
it's
there
not
is
perfect.
a 2 of nod to surgical extraction, a card that's near and
Mm,
dear to my heart, and then 13 one ofs.
beautiful. So what do we
Mike,
expect in
Mike
this?
Griffin knows what he's doing.
What
So
are we looking at?
we're really looking to grind
Yep.
as Mike Griffin. I would expect a sizable amount of graveyard hate,
Yeah, that's what I was
as he
thinking
is
too.
going to try and kind of make sure he doesn't get you know, punked out like he did that game, and then make sure that he has a way to fight the recursion of Espinoza's Life from the Limbs, which are going to be crucial in this matchup.
Does he have life in the
Does
limbs?
he have?
I don't believe he has life in the limbs
Does he
actually
not
in his
have Life from
entire
the Limbs? That
list.
is
That's
wild.
correct. This
Okay,
is a
well,
turbo death slip.
this is a
Death
turbo.
kill.
Well,
Not a loam. But it's still
apologies.
the surgicals are still very good though, because if he can get one of the depths in the grave,
Yeah,
then he can just pull the combo from the deck.
yeah. So
Which
Surgical
is
Extraction is good against most combo decks just because you can pull an entire copy of a card out of the game, and if it's important to the combo, like Dark Depths is, you can really just push the combo deck out of being able to combo,
Yep.
and at that point you can kill them with anything. So I could see the Surgicals coming in. If
What is
he knows that there's no Life in the Loam, then he probably will not be bringing in Rest in Peace.
Yeah, it doesn't really do
Uh,
anything without
Dominate.
that. Now that steals
Dominate, ladies and
land,
gentlemen, is
right?
1 blue blue X instant.
Okay.
Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost
Ooh.
X.
Ooh.
So if
Oh,
we see a Dominate,
oh dear. That's
that is
that's
going
terrifying.
to be spicy.
I didn't know it was an instant.
It is in
Wow.
fact an instant. Vendilion Click and Flusterstorm are both traditionally good against combo decks. I'm not sure how good they're going to be in this matchup, just because Vendilion Click's kind of not great here because Espinoza's deck is so redundant, and so many of his combo pieces are lands.
So the only thing that I think pushes Vanilla Click towards being sideboarded is that it has flash. That's it. It's a card
That's
that
true.
creates pressure,
I,
and he
I
doesn't have to
I'm
tap
not
out for it.
sure how much
He
weight
cares.
he's going to be putting on like closing the game quickly
Yeah.
versus like kind of getting him into a lockout position.
I'm an aggro player, so that's always on
No,
my mind.
I definitely understand what you're saying, and I would not be opposed to bringing it in. Flusterstorm I could see just as kind of like a pseudo spell pierce against the
Yeah,
disruption,
I like Flusterstorm.
because Espinoza is going to be having a lot of Thought Seize, Duress,
Yep,
Cabal,
it's
Therapy,
main
style of effects, so another spell pierce doesn't seem too awful.
And then past that, I don't think there's anything else that really stands
I'm
out.
not super excited by anything else.
No.
Wear Tear could come in theoretically against like Pithing Needle and Expedition Map, but that seems too narrow for me to bring in. So let's take a look at Mr. Espinoza's sideboard here.
Yeah, let me actually really quick update the game 1 there. Must be taking that
Yep.
down. Alright, so Daniel Espinoza has 4 Abrupt Decay, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Sylvan Library, 2 Spear of Resistance, 2 Thorn of Amethyst, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Choke, and 1 Krakus. He has a lot of good choices here, I feel like.
I agree. The ones that stand out to me are Sylvan Library.
Yes.
A control deck like Griffin's is not going to be able to pressure his life total, and so being able to convert all that extra life that he's going to be sitting on into resources through the library is going to allow him to keep up with cards like Jace,
Yep.
cards like perhaps Search for Azcanta, that sort of thing. Um, and then the other one that is really sticking out to me is possibly the choke.
Oh yeah, I really like choke in this matchup.
It's
If it goes into a longer game where miracles would theoretically shine,
mhm.
right? If Daniel can put himself into a position where he's kind of pretending to go off to force Griffin to tap out and then just lands a choke, that can just end the game.
Right. It allows him to attack on two different angles. Griffin's going to have to use resources to make sure he doesn't get attacked by a 2020, and probably will not have enough resources to you know keep the choke out of off the board. The only
And
other thing that we could perhaps see coming into play is like maybe
Pithing Needle?
Pithing Needle,
Yeah.
maybe Abrupt Decay, depending
They,
on what he thinks Griffin is going to be bringing out of his sideboard.
yeah, the abrupt decays don't actually have
The
very many
deck
good
lists are
targets.
not known, so there is some amount of mind games going on of what is he bringing in. Especially as a combo player, you have to think, what is my opponent going to do to interact with me? And
Yeah.
let me tell you, if I'm Espinoza, I'm not thinking dominate.
Same here. So we do see actually a Thoughtseize from Espinoza turn 1, and then Mike Griffin responds by brainstorming, which,
A classic legacy play.
yeah, very strong here. Gets to protect 2 of his pieces, and then let Espinoza see what he wants him to see, really.
Exactly. He allows him to craft the narrative and really just takes a lot of the punch out of the black disruption.
And this is kind of scary because he's showing him Snapcaster, Sword Splasher's Terminus, and what is the last card there? Is it a Vanilla Click? No, it's another
Uh,
Snapcaster. 2
yeah, two
Snapcasters,
snapcasters and a
swords.
sword. So
And he's
really,
showing him
really,
all
really
these, which
redundant
means he's
hand.
hiding 2 things that are better than this.
Exactly.
Oof.
Exactly.
I would not like to see this if I
Yeah.
was Espinoza.
And depending on Espinoza's hand, last time we saw him take the second copy of Swords to Plowshares and then exile it with
Hmm.
the Bajuka Bog.
And right now, these Snapcasters are, ambush vipers without the swords to plowshares and the yards. So if he can do
Exactly.
that again, it's extremely powerful.
It's going to really be hard to take him off of this Swords to Plowshares without attacking the graveyard because he does effectively have 3 different copies of it. He
Hmm.
could take one of the Snapcaster mages and play for the long game, but this is the play that I like the
Yep,
most,
taking.
which is taking the card that he doesn't have a way to interact with outside of just losing a 2020 to it. Um, it's playing for the long game, which more likely there's going to be a long game in these game 2 and game 3
Yep.
situations once you've diluted the combo with your sideboard cards. And yeah, just puts him in a position to kind of play some land goes. He doesn't have to worry about that terminus coming up later.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is too. Mike Griffin got to hide 2 cards. There's a pretty good chance he hides a brainstorm, right? And then just kind of
I
sandbags
would
it.
certainly hide a brainstorm
Hmm.
knowing the amount of discard that Espinoza is going to be bringing
And
to
we
the
see a
table.
Sylvan Scrying again. It's countered by that Force of Will
Force of
again.
Will was the hidden card. I like that.
Hmm.
It lines up well against a lot of the stuff that Espinoza is going to be doing on turn 2,
And
such
he's not going to be
as,
playing around it since he just saw the hand.
well,
The,
especially leading on the Urborg. It
hmm.
also could possibly be a Dark Depths into a
Into a Vampire X Mage.
Vampire
Yep.
Hexmage, and you don't really want to be spending a Swords to Plowshares on a Vampire Hexmage.
No, that is not where you want to be in this matchup. And then we see a land go from Mike Griffin. And, oh, does Daniel have another? Okay, I thought he had another hand discard spell, but it's just an Expedition Map.
Daniel's hand looks pretty loaded. I think this is his last land, and the rest are spells. So he's got a lot of stuff to interact
And
with.
I'm
But
seeing
he's gonna be.
Pithing Needle, Crop Rotation. I can't quite tell what that card is on top. Oh, it's the Sylvan, the guy that gets Shroud from sacking
Do you
lands.
see the card on top of Mr. Griffin's hand?
Oh,
It's
is that
it's
a Blood Moon?
it's the Blood Loon,
Oh
ladies and
dear.
gentlemen.
But he doesn't have red mana.
There
He
is no
can't.
red mana.
He's looking for it though. He wants it.
I believe he has found it.
Oh, did he?
These would be a good reason to bring in Abrupt Decay if
Mm.
you are Daniel
Oh, you
Espinoza.
know, I forgot about the one of Blood Moon. You see? It's just one
Exactly,
of
and
it. It
this is a
slips through your
situation where, yeah,
fingers.
as a combo deck, you kind of have to get into your opponent's mind to figure out what are they gonna do to stop me.
I mean, if you even expect this, right? Griffin
Yeah,
plays some weird
I
stuff,
was
and
gonna
it
say
catches people off guard.
I wouldn't be expecting Blood Moon, and I wouldn't be expecting Dominate, so
Certainly not this
I would
outcome.
not be too upset if if I was sitting in Espinoza's seat, because yeah, that's not something you bring out. To be fair though, He does have 3 basics in play currently, so that might be a tip-off, but Miracles
Miracles
is
are
a
just for
3-color
basics.
deck, so
Yeah, all the
you don't
time.
see too many Blood Moons out of
Oh,
3-color
he
decks.
did not find the red source.
He's gonna hide it. Doesn't want to give him any extra information.
You don't think he plays the Blood Moon here? Just if he had it on turn 3? Because it would put him on 1 swamp, nothing else. And it was free and clear.
I don't think he's afraid of anything because he's got the Swords to Plowshares and the Snapcaster Mage. He kind of feels like he has him locked out, and he doesn't want to get cheesed out by, like, exile,
Sure.
and then, like, make a 20/20 at the end of the turn.
My
I don't
concern
think that's
here...
a concern, but there's with the way that Griffin's hand is shaping up, I don't think there's any reason to get ahead of yourself. Perhaps.
That's the thing I can think of. Is, I mean, we know he has 4 dress for Thoughtseize.
That's true. That is true.
You're leaving yourself open to that. I mean, yeah, he's playing around some things by not playing it, but I almost feel like he's playing into more.
That'd be an interesting thing to ask him after the match.
Definitely.
All right, this is a Sylvan Safekeeper.
You know, that is also just a 1/1. We could kill him with that. Oh.
Oh, that's
aggressive.
This is an interesting fight. Because by sacrificing the lands, if he chooses to sacrifice lands here, ooh.
He is. He's gonna do it. And he sacrificed the basic too.
Well, that's the thing is, like, if he's gonna use all of his lands here, then our Blood Moon is not gonna turn very many things into mountains. But he only sacrificed 1. It wasn't a full-blown fight.
But he sacrificed the basic. Now
he did sacrifice the basic, which is gonna be important here.
Okay, so what's the chance that Griffin can't find an answer for the Sylvan and it just deals 20? Just get all the way
I've
there.
seen crazier games of Legacy.
I would love to see that happen.
But I would still be pretty surprised considering the amount of it. But
I want to hope though. I want to dream.
Oh, of course. No, everyone loves an underdog story, don't they?
We're
seeing already the new Legacy rules. The new rules, I'm sorry, for Blood Moon and Blood Moon style effects such as Magus of the Moon. Daniel Espinoza has played a copy of Dark Depths, and there are no counters placed on that Dark Depths.
Yep. So if he finds that Abrupt Decay,
yep,
that's a 20/20.
That is a free 20/20, no extra cards, just pretty darn good for a land drop, if you tell me.
And he has the Summon Safekeeper already in play, so that 20/20 is a test shroud. So
it sure do.
It's Terminus or bust.
Oh, yeah.
If that happens.
no
Now, problem, the Abrupt Decay costs a black and a green.
That is correct.
And we have currently 4 mountains in play.
Yes. So that we are a ways away, but a control deck like Mike's isn't going to be closing the door on Daniel very, very fast, so he has quite a few ways to...
And there goes our 1/1 win condition.
He just threw it away, man.
Yeah.
Like it didn't even matter.
Well, we see what they need to come down. I'm assuming that's going to name just the Mind Sculpture, but it could be named something else. It could name Caracas if he knows he has it or thinks he has it.
I'd be surprised to see Caracas.
Yeah,
with the Blood Moon in play. Jace is a much safer name.
I was trying to think of anything else.
If he was feeling a little bit spicy, perhaps naming Azkenta. Or you can't name it off Pithing Needle, can you?
Also Blood Moon's in play.
Also Blood Moon's in play. That's a land. Holy moly.
We're both just... I mean, I said Caracas, so...
We're
both
on
knew,
it.
though. We both knew it was Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor is the nice, easy one to name here.
Alright, we got another mountain from Daniel Espinoza. His Turbo Depth list is looking very red.
So yeah, I think both of our players here are in a bit of a slow game mode. I don't think anyone's really rushing to do anything.
Well,
Espinoza would really like to, but he's going to be drawing for a while before he hits a basic that's going to allow him to cast his spells. And Griffin's fine to just play lands here.
I'm very familiar with Daniel Espinoza's list because I'm playing him in the Legacy League. He runs exactly 1 swamp and 1 forest, and he already sacrificed a swamp, so he doesn't.
That is interesting. So, that being said, what are we drawing to as Daniel Espinoza? Let's take a look at his list one more time. So we have 4 Elvish Spirit Guide, and we have 3 Lotus Petal and 1 Forest in our deck to produce colored mana.
Are there any Metamorphoses in there that I...
There are no Manamorphose.
Unfortunate.
Um,
so he... What is he drawing to?
I mean, he could play Lotus Petal and cast an Elvish Spirit Guide.
Oh, he also could just cast Vampire... Oh no, there's double black.
Yep.
I don't know what I'm saying. That's it, right?
That is the only thing I can think of. A Dryad Arbor is an aggressive line here. I like a Dryad Arbor.
I mean, there's no time on these matches, so...
That is correct. It doesn't cost him anything to play some Magic and hang out.
He has to learn
watch
some
more too. Watch what Griffin has access to.
Yep, exactly.
Perhaps get to see the Dominate at some point. Just find out more information.
The Force is in play. He found it. I didn't notice that.
Yep, he got it with a Expedition map.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is a colorless spell, so strong way to play around Blood Moon.
What's he getting with it? Is this a bait spell? Do we feel like this is a bait spell?
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah. Because I don't know what he could get. But Griffin lets it resolve, also feeling
He's
that there's nothing he can get.
On top, so perhaps there's some layering tricks that we could perform with an herb word. I'm not a fluent Magic judge. I know how my deck works, but my deck does not play Herb Work or Blood Moon. So.
I don't believe it works.
I don't believe so either, but
I'm hoping it does. That's probably the better thing. Yeah, I don't think that.
Yeah, I don't think Espinoza knows what he's getting either, to be honest.
He's getting a land. We know that much.
I certainly hope he's getting a land.
Right.
Mike Griffin points his counterspell at the Expedition map, regretting the fact that he allowed Espinoza to go get a basic land to play through the Blood Moon here.
See, Espinoza's hand is Sword Splasher, land, counterspell, and a Wear Tear, I believe?
Yes, yeah, Griffin's hand is 2 lands, a Wear Tear, which it looks like he did bring in.
Not doing much though against a double Pithing Needle on Jace the Mind Sculptor.
That is true.
Now he does have Snapcasters though, so he could slowly.
Yeah, and Griffin is in no rush here. He's quite okay, just playing Drago.
Looks like Espinoza was talking to a judge, probably asking the same question we were just talking about.
I would not be surprised. He's really looking for any angle he can find here.
Looks like he will just end up getting the Ghost Quarter, which is, a mountain.
It's a very nice mountain.
It is. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Daniel Espinoza, as of I think 2 days ago, finished this deck being all signed.
Oh, I did. As some of you watching the stream might have seen, I am also a connoisseur of extremely overpriced damage cards. So I'm quite a fan of what he's doing.
Did you see the Sphere of Resistances, the price tag on that?
I did see quite a man of the world, Mr. Espinoza.
So we see a Sylvan Library come down, and it looks like it resolved, but we're going to see a Wear Tear taking out both that and one of the Needles. That is brutal.
Yeah, no, especially if Griffin knew about the Sylvan Libraries, the Wear Tear is absolutely an auto-include, because he doesn't want to allow Griffin, or he doesn't want to allow Espinoza, to keep up with him on cards. The last thing he wants is for himself to be in a position where he actually is losing on the Drago math. Yep. And if Espinoza is drawing 2 cards, perhaps even 3 cards a turn, it's a bad spot for Mike Griffin.
There's another one, but I believe Griffin does have the counterspell that can kind of just
and to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised countering this at this point, just because
it's more looks.
He is going to be having more looks, and we're getting to the point of the game where I think Griffin is going to be trying to more or less counter or destroy everything that Espinoza is doing. He's got such an advantage here that if Espinoza is going to be casting a spell, it's probably worth dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, the way this is going to work from here on out is Mike Griffin's going to see spells from Daniel Espinoza, and he's going to choose whether or not he likes them enough to let them come into play.
Yeah, if the spell is going to be doing anything probably going to be doing something about that.
Yep.
So uh, this is turning into a very typical Miracles game where text boxes on Espinoza's cards aren't going to be mattering a whole lot. Counterspell, Force of Will, Swords to Plowshares, well, gonna take care of that.
He's relying on drawing 2/2s for 3. That's 4 of those. That's it.
If you play a lot of Legacy, you know how dangerous a 2/2 for 3 is.
I mean, you know what deck I play.
I do know.
2/2s for 2 are
2/2s for
my
2
bread and
are
butter.
overpowered and should be banned, personally. Especially if they're 2/1s with first strike. That's just not fair. But 2/2s for 3, that's a beating, man.
Yeah.
Fulminator Mage.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Simian Spirit Guide, Elvish Spirit Guide. Just a beating.
Oh man, what's the card's name? Double white, single colorless, put counters on it, and then no one can cast spells with that. Sanctum Prelate, there we go. 2/2 for 3, that's a strong one as well.
2/2 for 3, strong. Too strong. Legacy playable. 2/2 for 3, no text box. Powerful magic cards.
Yes. Thank you, the concept. Or I'm concept. So it looks like we're just looking at the graveyards. I think at this point Daniel Espinoza is trying to figure out what's left. What has Griffin done? And Griffin's also trying to figure out what does Espinoza have. And that'll be a concession, so that you can't look at the library right there from the surgical extraction. And Daniel Espinoza does not want him knowing the full 60, and so he's just going to concede because he knows that there's no
the
real
rationale
out.
for continuing to play this long was he wanted to get information about Mike Griffin's deck.
Not give it away.
And so, at the prospect of losing every single piece of information that he has, I think a concession is a good time at this point. You know, as much as we were talking up 2/2s for 3, chances that gets there is pretty low.
Extremely slim, almost 0. And so we're going to be going to our game 3. Now Daniel Espinoza will be back on the play. So
very important.
Yeah, it's good, especially after sideboard. You want to be on the play.
And he knows about Blood Moon.
Yes.
So
well,
I would be very surprised if we saw some swamps getting sacrificed this game.
Also, it's interesting because Daniel Espinoza might now want to sideboard these replicas, but there are very few targets, and there's only one Blood
Almost
Moon.
none.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny. Griffin has almost forced him to do so when it might not be the right play. And we're just taking a look at our other matchups that we might be having after this one. We made sure everyone was close by so that we could snag them if this ended up ending quickly. Now, luckily, Miracles is a slow deck, so plenty of coverage for you guys right now. But
alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we have some results real quick.
Oh, good.
Brad Young, who was playing against Brian Rockenbach. Brad Young won in 3 games.
And what was Brad Young on?
Brad Young was on a Sultai Delver.
Oh, okay. And he beat the check pile?
He did.
Wow. Impressive.
Yes. A single Tombstalker being the highlight of Mr. Young's list.
Tombstalker? You don't see that every day.
That's
a beauty.
A Frankie Rodriguez is up a game against Tommy Kaufman. Frankie is on Grixis Delver. Tommy Kaufman is on a Cloud Post deck.
Yes.
A colorless Cloud Post deck.
I feel like Cloud Post actually has a pretty good matchup against Grixis Delver, doesn't it? It's so non-linear.
Outside of the 4 copies of Wasteland, the rest of the deck lines up very poorly against what the Cloud Post deck is doing.
Because they don't have creatures to kill, they don't have
they
spells
don't
that
have
need to be
creatures
countered
to line up
necessarily.
against to line up Lightning Bolt against. Their clock is not nearly fast enough to get underneath the oversized spells that the Cloud Post deck is going to be casting.
And Glimmer, don't forget about Glimmers, right? That's just game play too.
Glimmer can definitely put the match out of range of like a Deathrite Shaman, burnout strategy.
Game 3, game 4,
and just playing against him and watching him on stream, he has a lot of lifelink creatures such as Batterskull and Wurmcoil that would also make it really hard to close the game out through Lightning Bolts and Deathrite Shaman activations.
Yeah, Wurmcoil is going to be
so we are
every
seeing,
part of a Grixis deck.
just at the top of Espinoza's deck, a single copy of Abrupt Decay. And as we were talking about earlier, Blood Moon really is the only target, but it is a very, very important target. He can target the copies of Search if they are face up,
Yep.
and
But he won't. So.
he could possibly target a Rest in Peace,
But yeah,
a
those probably weren't
Vendilion
brought
Click,
in.
perhaps.
Oh,
But
true.
yes, I do believe that the Blood Moon is the only target, but again, a very important target.
Yes.
And this is
Demanding.
one of the reasons that it's so nice to be playing blue combo decks, because you have to bring in these kind of awkward copies of cards to fight against what your opponent's going to be doing to stop you. And sometimes they're just bad, right? Sometimes you just don't have a Blood Moon to line up your Abrupt Decay against, and you can get rid of it with Brainstorm. As a green-black deck, that Abrupt Decay is just going to hang out
Yep,
until
and
Blood
he
Moon
did
is
draw it.
cast.
He did draw it, actually. The Blood Moon is in hand. Or the Abrupt Decay, I mean, is in
The
hand.
Abrupt Decay is in hand, so
that's gonna be there the whole game.
you know, yeah, the whole game, and you know, imagine if that had been a crop rotation or
Exactly.
you know whatever card he had chosen to bring out. So we'll see if he can you know close out the game before Griffin gets his lock set up.
Now, Griffin, I think, does have a source of posture. He has a pulse in his hand. It looks like there's a pulse of Marasa in Mike Griffin's hand. That is the gain 4, right? That says if you're at lower life, you can put it back in your hand.
Pulse of the Field?
Yeah,
Yes,
Pulse
that
of the
is
Field.
correct.
Wow,
Pulse
interesting
of the
that they
Field's
brought that
a
in.
very interesting
It gives an extra turn.
inclusion. It does, but that is about all it does. It is the worst cantrip I have ever seen, if I must say so myself.
Well, it'll at least save him. I kind of like it. If there's dead
Oh,
cards,
I like it. Don't get me
saves
wrong.
you. It saves you. It gives you a whole extra turn
But
for sorcery speed removal.
yeah,
Like Jace minus.
if
That's
he
an option now.
if he does it, you know, after an attack has been declared, he goes to like 3, perhaps. He can just keep casting it until he's back up to 23 again.
Yep.
So
After he deals with the
potentially it
2020,
could
of
be
course.
infinity attacks if
If they're spaced
Griffin
out enough.
has, you know, 300 turns or what have you.
Yeah.
I have just gotten information that the Sidney Tran Dan Ford match is going to a game 3.
Oh, okay. It's exciting. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see that one since this one's just starting our game 3, but maybe next round.
Maybe.
And we did see Daniel Espinoza resolve the Sylvan Scrying, and he did get the Dark Dust. So
Fantastic.
combo pieces in hand, ready to go.
And Mike Griffin going ahead and fetching up basics as early as possible.
Yep.
Um,
Leading the.
just in the event of drawing a Blood Moon, you don't want to lock yourself out of your own mana. That's
it might
not
also
how that
make
works.
Daniel think twice, right?
Of course. Well, I mean, look at Daniel's lands. Yeah, he's got 2 basics too, which in a 2-color deck is not likely going to be a huge issue, but in a 3-color deck, that could be a full turn, delaying you casting your spells. So
we're gonna see a duress from Daniel Espinoza's side.
It's going to resolve. Mike Griffin is going to slow roll everyone in the stream like a hero. And Pulse of the Fields, we have a reader. Can't blame him. Blame him.
Not even a little bit. What do you expect him to take here?
There we go.
Oh, we know.
There we go.
I'm expecting the Jace or the Swords.
So, in general, I have a policy when you're playing Eternal format, like Legacy and Vintage. And that is, when you Thought Seize your opponent, and your opponent has a magic card that you don't know what it does. The food chains of the world. You're like, I've never seen this card.
Sure.
Allurn, perhaps. You're like, what does Allurn do? What does Cavern Harpy do? I've never seen this magic card. It's likely correct to take that card, because it will probably kill you. In this situation,
Not quite.
I don't think you need to take Pulse of the Fields. I don't think Pulse of the Fields is really going to be killing you.
And so what did end up happening was he took the Swords to Plowshares, then after, in Mike Griffin's draw step, he surgicaled it, which is going to neuter the Snapcaster Mage, and then he gets to also get all the other copies. So now he's safe from the Swords to Plowshares, only having to worry about Terminus, which Mike Griffin did actually just draw one of the 2 copies. But this is pretty nice for Daniel Espinoza now. He has one one less single target move spell to worry about, and really 8 more because of all the Snapcaster mages, all
And
gone.
I love his timing.
Yep, and the draw step, perfect.
Draw step is
Oh,
ideal.
and he gets to see the dominate.
He
Gets to see
knows.
the
Oh
dominate.
my gosh.
Oh, and he's
It's a
stopping.
reader. A reader.
Oh, I think he knew what it was because he plays 93 and 94.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Just the
Mm-hmm.
quality of players here. Just flips through the deck,
High.
knows what Nominate does.
I mean, he didn't know Pulse,
what I'm
though.
talking
He didn't know
He
Pulse.
didn't know Pulse, but I can forgive
Clearly
for
not a
that.
mono red burn player.
I didn't know what Pulse did.
Oh.
But yeah, because Mike Griffin got a Plains, Daniel Espinoza was safe to fire off the Surgical in his draw step, whereas if he had gotten a blue source, he could have perhaps had a counterspell drawn for his turn, and it's a lot more dangerous to do it in the draw step.
Yeah.
So
Now, one thing though, countering that spell is in some ways not as powerful as countering a lot of the other spells. But I do like I do definitely like
I
Daniel
don't think
Espinoza's
it's
play.
correct, but
Quite good.
it just shows, you know, he's cutting himself off of options by playing these basics, and yeah, no, I agree. If I was Mike Griffin, I probably would allow the Surgical to resolve. I don't think that's likely the game he wants to be playing here anyway. He likes to be playing a Blood Moon style game.
I'm a little confused. Mike Griffin just drew. Yeah, and it looks like Daniel's stopping him. Mike Griffin had already drawn. That was in the draw.
That is
step he did
correct.
that.
So
This is
we
gonna
are
become a reverse
probably
Nazis.
going to be stopping the game a little bit for a judge call here. I would not be surprised.
And so because it's on camera and we're all friends here, they might just put it back in the top. But
Well, because
the
it was
technical
his hand was quite
Just
literally
revealed.
just revealed.
Yep.
We can know exactly what card it is.
But the ruling, I believe now, the technical ruling is that you do reverse Thoughtseize, but it looks like they're just rewinding because all information is perfect. So there's
Exactly.
No,
Yeah,
there's no reason
I
to
think,
do that.
and they seem to be pretty good friends.
Yeah, yeah. This is
All everybody's friends here.
so it's not going to be as cutthroat.
Mike Griffin, being the official judge of the event, is giving himself a warning.
Oh, I like that.
A honest man through and through, our Mike Griffin.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've actually
All
never
right,
known.
give
What
me
is-
1 second. Looks like we're getting some results here.
Oh. Oh, okay.
All right, Mr. Frankie Rodriguez has taken his match against Kaufman. I'm sorry, against Tommy Kaufman. So Grixis Delver takes the match against 12 Post.
2-0.
2-0.
Which is highly unexpected. Even he said so himself. He said,
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
I would imagine there were quite a few wastelands.
Yes. And it looks like we have now in our main game a Hex Mage resolving, which, you know, 2-1 first strikers, I'm all about those, so he can afford that.
I've made my opinions clear. 2-1 first strikers are a little pushed. WotC R&D, I think we would probably have enough of those, no more needed, but yes, if you've seen the Turbo Depths play any,
Yep.
you know how much damage a 2-1 first striker can get in.
Now there is this Pulse and Marasa though, so... Now hey, just something very important. This Vampire Hex Mage also kills Jason Knight Sculptor.
That is true.
Very
True.
critical. That it can be used to kill one of Miracle's only win conditions.
Yes.
One of the very few.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the Turbo Depths deck not at a loss for ways to deal with the Mind Sculptor with Pithing Needle and Vampire Hex Mage.
yep. And he's at 23. I appreciate that. A call out from
The
from
whole
Daniel
room
Espinoza.
now knows.
Mike Griffin is at 23.
Mike Griffin, 23.
And then that just will result.
Pulse of the Field will not be returning.
Oh, there's a Baneslayer Angel and Mike
If
Griffin's
Baneslayer Angel is being brought in, I would expect the Vendilion Click also.
Yes,
in.
yeah, that makes perfect sense.
If we are bringing a 5-mana sorcery threat, and we are certainly bringing a 3-mana instant threat in.
And the Jace hits the ban. I'm excited. This Baneslayer might just win the game. There's a world where that just happens, right? I mean 2020 blocks it, but 2020 has to exist.
5/5. I remember when Baneslayer came out. People did the math. Baneslayer beats Progenitus in a race. I don't know if it beats Miralage in a race, but it's pretty hard to race a 5/5 lifelinker.
Yeah, 5/5 lifelink.
Certainly not winning a race with a 2-1 first strike.
Now, here's the real question: is Miralage like a fish, right? It's not a demon or a dragon.
I believe it is a a Leviathan.
Okay, so not pro
It, not
Leviathans,
pro
unfortunately.
Leviathan, not pro Squid
Oh, it's
Face
an
on
avatar.
the
It looks like based on IM concept. I think it's an avatar. I believe that.
an avatar.
I
That
could.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Poor Baneslayer Angel.
Master of all four elements, Mirror Age.
And it looks like Micron's gonna pass here, which is interesting. Because, yep, and
Daniel
Espinoza,
Espinoza has sniffed out. The
there's
last
something
card is
going on.
probably a something.
So, I'm curious. Do you think it's a forcible or just a hard count, like a regular, actual counter spell? What are you expecting this to be? Or is he bluffing? Do you think he's that?
He has the ability to take one hit on the chin here.
Mm-hmm.
So he could be bluffing, but holy moly, what a bluff.
I'm so interested right now what's going on.
What, do we know what Daniel Espinoza's card in hand is?
Abrupt Decay
It
and...
is the
Oh my,
Dominate, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait, is it an enchantment or is it an instant that just deals?
It is an instant.
Oh no.
Your Abrupt Decays have no power here.
Oh my goodness, what a top deck. I can't even imagine how Daniel must
We
be feeling right now.
we are looking for an answer to our own 2020.
It's indestructible.
What a
Oh, and that's
okay,
it.
no,
Wow.
no can do,
That
sir. No
was
can do.
amazing. A top deck dominate. Oh, I didn't see that one coming.
If you came here for legacy, that was some legacy. Let me tell
Canada
you.
just flicks it across the table. No respect for the dominate.
Alrighty.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
pretty standard
was-
game of Magic
oh, yeah.
right there. Dominating Merit Lodge happens all the time.
I mean, that's what I expect when I come to legacy top eights.
That was a rough 2 games for Danny to lose to Blood Moon and Dominate. Both
Just
cards that you
one-ofs.
can't really play around
Nope.
without knowing that they're there.
You know what's worth noting? Remember how we talked about that Abrupt Decay being a possible crop rotation earlier?
Yes,
If it had been that, a Sincerity Step would have saved him.
that is true.
Very
That
important.
is true.
So,
And again, he knew about the Blood Moon in Game 3, but he did not know about the Dominate.
no, until he went to the library. Saw his
Alrighty,
demise.
so we have 2 of
Do we have
our
any games that we
4.
can grab? It looks
So
like
we've
have one
got
game
Mike
left in
Griffin,
Game 3.
we have Brad Young, we have Frankie Rodriguez, and then we have a Dan Ford and or a Sidney Tran.
And what are they playing right now? What's
So
the match?
Dan Ford appears to be on Goblins,
Yes.
and
Tell me.
Sidney Tran is on Grixis Delver, a classic.
I'm very torn right now because I'm a good friend of Sydney's, and so I want him to win as a friend, but I really want Goblins to win because Goblins are super fun.
Can completely understand. I also am partial to Sydney. He is a good guy. I work with him a decent amount.
Oh yes.
But
You both
who
won.
doesn't want to see Goblin Lackey take down a tournament?
Oh, I don't think anyone that's a true Legacy fan doesn't want to see that
I
happen.
mean,
I don't care if you don't play
just-
the deck. I don't care if you hate the deck. You want it to win.
I mean, you could be playing against Goblins, and a little bit of you is like,
Oh yeah.
I know I could win, but Goblins.
Yeah. I've definitely lost to Goblins and not been mad.
I completely agree.
I'm a little sad we can't get them over onto the camera because I feel like that would be an interesting matchup to
Oh,
watch.
absolutely.
But-
Lots of very interesting play patterns.
Yep.
Pyromancer allows the Grixis deck to keep up with the Goblin deck on the board, and if you've ever seen a Goblin deck played, you know that the Goblin deck can certainly keep up with the Grixis deck on
Oh
value.
yeah. Ringleader is a very powerful magic card.
You wouldn't think that the red aggressive deck is the has the inevitability in the blue mid-range matchup, but it certainly does. I
But
think.
Goblins, I don't know, Goblins I wouldn't classify as a red aggressive deck. I mean, it has Lackey,
It-
right?
it-
And Lackey is an aggressive card, but past that,
It is an
It's more
Aether
of a
Vial deck,
mid-range deck.
but it isn't. It is not very aggressive. No.
It's just the Lackey. The Lackey is extremely aggressive. Past
The-
that,
the-
you're
the-
really just looking at like
the
pieces of
Lackey
cards.
allows you to get free wins, but the rest of the deck is a value machine.
Yep, value, and then with matrons to search out, surgical surgical answers to different decks, right? Like sharpshooters, things of that nature.
Honestly, if Goblins if the Goblins pilot feels that he has a good matchup against the blue mid-range decks, the rest of this top 8 might be favorable for him, because I think all we have left is brainstorm decks.
And I feel like against let's say Griffin on Miracles, I would want to be the Goblins player in that matchup every day. They have Caverns main, Aether Vials main, Ringleaders. Griffin only has two
Absolutely.
Terminus. Like I'm
Yeah,
feeling great if I'm the Goblins player.
you look at Griffin's deck and you see three, uh, two copies of Supreme Verdict, two copies of Terminus, four copies of Swords to Plowshares. You'd think there's no way the Goblins player is favored. But yeah, I actually agree with you. They have so many ways to generate value, and they can kill out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. Well, I was actually speaking with Mike Hadley after one of the rounds. A notable Goblin aficionado.
Oh, the most
The one.
yes. If you know anything about goblins, you know Mike Hadley.
Yep, and it looks like Dan Ford did actually.
So goblins will be advancing
I
to
love it.
our
And we need to have that on camera. I feel
semifinals.
like next round. I want to see the Goblins.
Oh yes.
But like I was saying, I was speaking with Mike Hadley, and he actually had a win where he killed his opponent from 17 using Stark Prospector and a Goblin Sharpshooter, sacking his own guys to untap it over and over again, looping it and getting matrons to find more goblins to sack to continue the loop, and did, I think he said 9 or 10 damage with just it in one turn.
I'm actually friends with the person that lost to that. He told me, he was like, I untapped at 16 on turn 3. He attacked me for 8, and then he dealt 8 damage with a Goblin Sharpshooter. And I was like, that is unfortunate for you.
and that's an impressive line to find, right? That's
Absolutely.
You playing the deck over and over again. That's how you learn things like that. 99% of people would never have been able to find that line.
Yeah.
But Mike Hadley, after forever of playing this deck, he found that line. He was actually, the reason he was talking about is he was trying to find out if he could have dealt more damage. He was doing the math on if he could find more points. I love it.
My buddy that lost to it said that he knew he was in trouble when Mike Hadley started doing math on his life pad. He was like, "Oh, we are in trouble.
This is not where we want to be.
We are screwed." Yeah. Any of you aspiring Magic players out there, if your opponent ever requires a pen and paper to do their combat math, you are in trouble. You have misplayed somewhere.
Well, not even misplayed, but they just know what they're doing.
Yeah, man. You're just gonna take a whole bunch to the head.
All right, and it looks like I think everyone is done, so we should be getting pairings relatively soon. Now, I definitely want to see the Goblins deck play next round, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put that in.
Yeah, I think
I don't know
everyone,
who the playing
I think
against.
all of you at home also want to see the Goblins deck. Am I right, chat? Are we Goblins?
Anyone that
Goblins
says
fans in the
otherwise,
chat?
you're just wrong. So.
I mean, we wouldn't want to say that about our wonderful
Oh,
chat,
I mean,
but you're probably not a great guy. You probably don't pay all your taxes or something if you're not a fan of goblins, right? You probably don't stop at the stop signs. You probably got something going on in your life that you need to resolve so that you do enjoy watching goblins.
It's true.
See, we got goblins.
Goblins exclamation point. Love it. I mean, that's a red creature, so I'll count it.
Yes.
I mean, I know what it is,
I think Super Meat Boy would be a fan of
Oh,
goblins.
and it's Wacky Tay. I am very familiar with that person, so that's certainly a pro goblins.
Good.
So, elves.
We have elves greater than sign goblins. I can see where you're coming from.
Elves is very interesting.
But there aren't
to
any
watch.
mountains in elves, so I'm gonna disagree. We've got a meh. Dominate is still a good card. Also true.
I played Belcher. Goblins are great. I don't know how those two really coincide,
so
but I'm fine. Mountains? Is it because they both have...
Looking forward, after the display that we just saw,
Yes.
are we gonna see dominates all over Grand Prix Seattle?
I hope so.
Is that going to be the talk of the town in Seattle?
Whew, all
Grand
700
Prix
of
Seattle,
viewers
April,
go out and tell everyone else.
coming up. I mean, every vendor sold out of Dominate.
That would be amazing.
Legacy's a wild format.
Oh, it really is. Things get printed that you never think would see play. I mean, we saw a what was the card called? I don't remember the name of the card. It was a 4-mana artifact that said when you tap it, flip a coin. If you win the flip, it blows up all non-land.
The commander card that is wild. I remember watching PJ had a commander card as well, the Titania.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very
Argoth
good
Protector.
card.
Yeah, that's
5/3.
powerful.
Whenever a land you control goes to the graveyard, get a 5/3 token, and then when she comes into play, you return a land from your graveyard to play.
And the deck he had really utilized it well.
Oh yeah.
He had a very innovative mono green Stompy deck with quite a bit of land disruption, wasteland effects. The new card from Hour of Devastation that allows you to play lands from your hand
Yeah,
from your graveyard.
Ramanov
Excavator.
Yep.
Thank you. So
Those cards.
really an interesting deck. But we're seeing some of the cards that Mike Griffin brought in. He chose to bring in Engineered Explosives, most likely to fight over Pithing Needle. And as we said, if Baneslayer Angel is coming in, Million Click certainly did come in. Pulse of the Fields, I would love to get a chat with Mike Griffin and see what the logic on that is.
I mean, it buys you the turn. That's definitely the logic. What did he cut? That's what I want to know.
Oh,
I want to know
absolutely,
what the cut was for that card, because it had to have been something that was good enough or bad enough that would seem better.
I mean, clearly, if he's bringing in Pulse of the Fields, he has some strong opinions about the matchup. So I would love to hear his opinions.
Mike Griffin has a strong opinion about all his matchups.
I'm sure he does.
Let's be honest. This man knows his miracle matchups. So.
Hey, are we waiting on anything?
It's just 1 second. We're seeing how close we are to the next round. And we're not entirely certain. So I think we're actually going to take a quick break. It'll probably be less than 5 minutes if I had to guess.
Yeah, everyone is ready for the semifinals, but it looks like there might be a judge call happening that needs to be resolved. So short break, and we will begin our semifinals at the Arizona Eternal Magic City Championships for Chandler, Arizona.
This is Graydon Baker with the infamous Nick Gill.
Closing out.